We told you to watch the vaults. We told you that the price on your screen is a distraction. We told you that the only number that matters is the number of ounces sitting in the warehouses of Lower Manhattan. We told you that when the metal starts leaving, the game is over. Today, the metal started leaving at a pace we have never seen before. While the mainstream financial media was busy analyzing interest rates and inflation expectations, the COMEX released its daily depository report. To the average investor, scrolling through headlines, this is invisible. It does not trend on Twitter. It does not appear on CNBC. It is a boring spreadsheet buried on the CME Group website. But to the insider, to the person who understands how this market actually functions, this spreadsheet is the Rosetta Stone. It tells you what the banks are actually doing while their analysts tell you to sell. And today, that spreadsheet screamed one word: drain. Let me read you the numbers directly from the CME Group Warehouse Stocks report dated this morning. Asahi Refining withdrew 565,000 ounces. Brinks withdrew 617,000 ounces. C&T Depository withdrew 351,000 ounces. Loomis International withdrew 218,000 ounces. Malka Emmett withdrew 189,000 ounces. And StoneX, the largest single withdrawal, removed 791,000 ounces from the system. In total, 2,731,000 ounces of silver left the COMEX vault system in a single trading session. That is not a typo. That is nearly 3 million ounces. Gone. In 24 hours. Let me translate this into plain English. Somebody, or more accurately, a lot of somebodies, decided they no longer trust the paper receipt. They decided that owning a claim on silver is not the same as owning silver. They picked up the phone, they called their broker, and they said 4 words that terrify every bullion bank on Wall Street. I want my metal. Now you might ask yourself a simple question. Why does this matter? Silver comes in and out of warehouses all the time. This is a functioning market. Metal moves, but you have to look at the context. You have to look at the trajectory. You have to look at where we came from to understand where we are going. 12 months ago, the COMEX registered silver inventory stood at 186 million ounces. 6 months ago, it had fallen to 158 million ounces. 3 months ago, it dropped below 140 million. As of this morning, the registered category, the silver that is actually available for immediate delivery against futures contracts, has collapsed to 119.7 million ounces. That is a 36% decline in registered inventory in 1 year. That is not normal market functioning. That is a bank run in slow motion. But here's what makes today different. Here's what makes today historic. The rate of withdrawal is accelerating. We are not seeing a steady decline. We are seeing an exponential curve. In January, the average daily withdrawal was 400,000 ounces. In February, it increased to 600,000 ounces. In March, it spiked to 900,000 ounces. And now today we have breached 2.7 million ounces in a single session. This is not linear. This is parabolic. This is the signature of a system approaching a phase transition. Think about what a phase transition means in physics. Water does not gradually become ice. It remains liquid until it hits 32 degrees, and then suddenly, catastrophically, it crystallizes. The COMEX silver market is approaching its freezing point. The withdrawals are telling you that the temperature is dropping. The system is approaching the moment when it snaps from liquid to solid, from paper to physical, from fiction to reality. The banks know this. They can read the same spreadsheet you're reading right now. They see the trajectory. They understand that at the current rate of withdrawal, the registered category will be completely depleted in approximately 45 trading days. That is not years. That is not months. That is weeks. 45 days until the vault shows 0. Now, will they let it reach 0? Absolutely not. They will intervene long before that. They will change the rules. They will halt trading. They will force cash settlement. They will do whatever it takes to prevent the world from seeing an empty vault. Because an empty vault is not just a logistics problem. It is an existential crisis for the entire paper-silver market. For 50 years, the COMEX has set the price of silver for the entire world. London defers to New York. Tokyo defers to New York. Shanghai had no choice but to accept New York's price. But the COMEX only has pricing authority because it has the metal to back up its contracts. The moment the vaults go empty, the moment there is no silver to deliver, the COMEX becomes what it has always secretly been. A casino where the chips cannot be cashed out. The drain is the truth leaking out. Every ounce that leaves the vault is a vote of no confidence in the system. Every withdrawal is a middle finger to the paper market. Somebody with real money and real power has decided that they would rather pay the storage costs, the insurance costs, the transportation costs, and the hassle costs to physically remove their silver from New York rather than leave it in the vault. Why would they do that? Why would sophisticated institutional players voluntarily increase their costs? Because they do not trust that the silver will be there when they need it. Because they see the same trajectory you are seeing. Because they are front-running the vault failure. This is the smart money heading for the exits. This is the insiders quietly liquidating their paper positions and converting them to physical metal. This is the transfer of wealth from those who trust the system to those who understand that the system is breaking. And where is this silver going? Who is taking delivery of nearly 3 million ounces in a single day? That is the question we will answer in part 2 of this deep dive. We are going to trace the metal. We are going to follow the silver from Lower Manhattan to its final destination. And what we find will confirm every thesis we have presented over the past 6 months. The vaults are bleeding. The question is no longer if they will run dry. The question is when. Stay with us. In part 1, we established that 2.7 million ounces of silver left the COMEX vault system in 24 hours. We established that this is a historic withdrawal, part of an accelerating trend that threatens to drain the registered category within 45 trading days. But raw numbers without context are just noise. To truly understand what is happening, we must answer the investigative question, where is the silver going? When metal leaves the COMEX, it does not simply vanish. Silver is a physical element. It has weight, it has volume. It requires transportation, insurance, and secure storage. You cannot hide 2.7 million ounces under your mattress. That is approximately 84 metric tons of metal. That requires trucks, that requires logistics, that leaves a trail. The CME report categorizes withdrawals but does not tell you the final destination. For that, we must analyze secondary data points. We must look at shipping manifests, refinery intake reports, and most importantly, we must look at who has been accumulating on the other side of the trade. Let us start with the most obvious destination, Shanghai. The Shanghai Gold Exchange publishes weekly inventory reports. Over the past 4 weeks, their silver inventory has increased by approximately 8.2 million ounces. During that same period, the COMEX has lost approximately 11.4 million ounces. The math is not perfect because not all metal goes directly from New York to Shanghai. Some of it stops in London. Some of it is rerouted through Swiss refineries. But the correlation is undeniable. For every ounce leaving the West, approximately 70 cents is appearing in the East. This is the great silver migration. Metal is flowing from vaults where the price is artificially suppressed to vaults where the price reflects physical reality. As we discussed in previous reports, the Shanghai silver price is trading at a consistent premium of $8 to $12 above the COMEX price. This creates an arbitrage incentive that is mathematically impossible to resist. If you can buy silver in New York at $84 and sell it in Shanghai at $93, you have a risk-free profit of $9 per ounce. On 2.7 million ounces, that represents a one-day profit of over $24 million. This is not speculation. This is pure arbitrage. This is free money for anyone with the logistics capability to move metal across oceans. And who has that capability? Not retail investors, not your local coin shop. The entities draining the COMEX are the same entities that have always controlled the physical market. The major refineries, the industrial conglomerates, and increasingly the sovereign wealth funds of nations that understand what is coming. Let us examine the second destination, industrial consumption. The Silver Institute released preliminary data last week showing that industrial silver demand has increased by 18% year over year. Solar panel manufacturing alone consumed 161 million ounces in the past 12 months, a new record. Electric vehicle production consumed another 89 million ounces. 5G infrastructure deployment consumed 41 million ounces. And the artificial intelligence revolution, which requires massive expansion of data center capacity, is consuming silver at rates that were not even projected in industry models from 2 years ago. Every data center requires silver. Every server rack contains silver solder connections. Every fiber optic cable uses silver in its connectors. The AI boom that everyone is celebrating on Wall Street is silently eating the world's silver supply. But here is the critical point. Industrial consumers do not buy paper futures and roll them forward. They buy physical metal and they consume it. When Samsung takes delivery of silver for battery production, that silver is gone forever. It is not sitting in a vault waiting to be sold back into the market. It has been transformed into a product. It has been melted, alloyed, and embedded into something that will never be refined back into a silver bar. This is the fundamental asymmetry of the silver market. The paper market can create infinite contracts. The physical market cannot create infinite silver. And when industrial demand accelerates while mine production remains flat, the only source of metal is existing inventory. The vaults, the COMEX is being drained by a two-front assault. On one front, the Shanghai arbitrage is pulling metal eastward. On the other front, industrial consumption is permanently removing metal from circulation. The vaults are caught in a pincer movement. Now let us examine the third destination, and this is the one the establishment does not want you to think about. Private wealth storage. We have confirmed reports that several major private vault operators in Singapore, Dubai, and Zurich have seen record inflows of silver over the past 90 days. Brinks Singapore reported that their precious metals storage utilization has reached 94% capacity. Malka Amit Dubai has reportedly leased additional warehouse space. Loomis Zurich has a waiting list for new storage contracts. These private vaults cater to high net worth individuals and family offices. These are not speculators. These are not day traders. These are generational wealth holders who are making a conscious decision to move their assets outside the traditional banking system. They are watching the same vault reports you are watching. They are seeing the same trajectory, and they are voting with their feet. This represents a tectonic shift in how the wealthy view silver. For decades, silver was considered a poor man's gold. It was seen as too bulky, too cheap, too industrial to be a serious wealth preservation vehicle. But that perception is changing rapidly. The wealthy are beginning to understand that in a world of currency debasement and supply chain fragility, physical silver offers something that no paper asset can provide: certainty. You cannot default on a silver bar. You cannot dilute a silver bar through money printing. You cannot sanction a silver bar sitting in a private vault in Singapore. It is the ultimate bearer asset, anonymous, portable in small quantities, and impossible to counterfeit. The 2.7 million ounces that left the COMEX today are not coming back. They have been scattered to the four winds. Some are on container ships heading to Shanghai. Some are in the intake bins of solar panel factories. Some are sitting in private vaults under assumed names, but none of them are available to cover the paper short positions of the bullion banks. This is the trap. The banks sold paper silver they cannot source, and every day, the gap between their paper obligations and the available physical supply grows wider. In Part 3, we will examine the systemic implications. What happens to the banks when the vaults run dry? What happens to the price discovery mechanism when there is no metal to discover? We have established the what, 2.7 million ounces withdrawn in a single day. We have established the where, Shanghai, industrial consumption, private wealth storage. Now we must establish the why. Why is this happening now? And more importantly, what does it mean for the entities on the wrong side of this trade? To understand the systemic implications, you must first understand the structure of the COMEX silver market. The COMEX is not a physical marketplace where buyers and sellers exchange metal. It is a derivatives exchange, where traders exchange contracts that represent the right to receive metal at a future date. For every long contract, there is a short contract. For every buyer betting the price will rise, there is a seller betting the price will fall. In theory, this is a zero-sum game. For every winner, there is a loser. But the silver market has a structural imbalance that makes it unlike any other commodity market. The short side is dominated by a small number of commercial banks. According to the most recent Commitment of Traders report, the four largest commercial traders hold a net short position of approximately 280 million ounces. Let that number sink in. Four banks are short 280 million ounces. The total registered inventory available for delivery is 119 million ounces. The shorts are obligated to deliver 2.3 times more silver than actually exists in the vaults. This is not a hedge. This is not risk management. This is a naked short position of unprecedented scale, and it only works as long as the longs never demand delivery. For decades, the banks have operated under a gentleman's agreement with the speculators. The specs buy futures contracts to bet on price movement. When the contract approaches expiration, they roll it forward into the next month. They never take delivery because they don't want physical metal. They want paper profits. This arrangement allowed the banks to sell unlimited paper silver without ever worrying about sourcing physical metal. They could suppress the price whenever they wanted by dumping contracts into the market. They could trigger stop losses, force liquidations, and then cover their shorts at lower prices. It was a money printing machine. But the arrangement is breaking down. The entities buying silver today are not speculators. They are industrial consumers who need the metal. They are sovereign wealth funds accumulating strategic reserves. They are cash buyers who intend to take delivery. Look at the delivery data from this month. We have seen 4,147 delivery notices issued so far, representing 24.2 million ounces of silver standing for delivery. That is 20% of the registered inventory in a single delivery month. The historical average is closer to 5%. The longs are no longer rolling. They are standing. They are demanding their metal. And when a long demands delivery, the short must provide the silver within a strict time frame. If they cannot source the metal, they face two options: buy it on the open market at whatever price is available, or default. Imagine what happens if even one major bank defaults on a COMEX delivery obligation. The entire credibility of the exchange collapses overnight. Every market participant would immediately question whether their contracts are worth the paper they are printed on. There would be a stampede to take delivery before the vault goes empty. This is why the withdrawals are accelerating. The smart money sees the math. They understand that the registered inventory is insufficient to cover the outstanding short positions. They are racing to convert their paper claims into physical metal before the music stops. The banks are in a death spiral. As the price rises, their short positions become more expensive to maintain. They need to post more margin to their brokers. They need to show their counterparties that they can cover their obligations. But the more the price rises, the more investors want to take delivery, which drains the vaults further, which makes the bank's position even more precarious. Let me give you a concrete example of the mathematics involved. Assume a major bank is short 50 million ounces of silver at an average entry price of $25. With silver now trading at $84, they are sitting on a paper loss of $59 per ounce. That is a total loss of $2.95 billion on a single position. Now, they have not actually realized that loss yet. It is a mark-to-market liability. As long as they can roll the position forward and avoid delivery, they can pretend the loss does not exist. But every day that the price stays elevated, the cost of rolling increases. And every day that the inventory decreases, the risk of forced delivery increases. The vault drain is not just a physical phenomenon, it is a psychological weapon. Every withdrawal is a reminder to the short sellers that their time is running out. Every red number on the inventory report is another nail in the coffin of the paper manipulation scheme. This is why the CME raised margin requirements. They were not trying to cool an overheated market. They were trying to flush out the long speculators so the banks could cover some of their shorts at lower prices. But, as we saw, the margin hike failed. The price dropped to $2 and immediately bounced. The physical buyers absorbed the selling without blinking. The banks fired their weapon and missed. So, what comes next? What is the next move for an establishment that has run out of financial ammunition? History tells us that when financial tools fail, the system turns to political tools. When they cannot win in the market, they change the rules outside the market. They invoke emergency powers. They classify materials as strategic assets. They implement export controls and purchase restrictions. In Part 4, we will examine the political response that is already taking shape. We will show you how the vault drain is directly connected to the emergency meetings happening in Washington, Beijing, and Brussels. The market is screaming a message. The governments are finally starting to listen. For decades, silver was invisible to policymakers. It was not strategic like oil. It was not prestigious like gold. It was a commodity for photography and jewelry, easily ignored by the serious men who run the world's economies. That era is over. The vault drain has forced silver onto the agenda of the most powerful governments on earth. And once something becomes political, the rules of the game change entirely. Let us start with what we know. The United States government currently holds 0 ounces of silver in strategic reserve. None. The strategic silver stockpile was sold off in the 1990s and 2000s under the assumption that the market would always provide. That assumption is now being tested. The Defense Logistics Agency quietly published a report last month identifying silver as a Tier 1 critical mineral for defense applications. This is a significant reclassification. It places silver in the same category as rare earth elements and lithium. It opens the door for government intervention under the Defense Production Act. What does the Defense Production Act allow? It allows the President to require domestic industries to prioritize government contracts over commercial sales. It allows the government to allocate scarce resources. In plain English, it allows the government to cut in line. If the vault drain continues at the current pace, we expect the administration to invoke the DPA within 60 to 90 days. They will not announce it with fanfare. There will be no press conference. There will simply be a quiet executive order buried in the Federal Register. And suddenly, every domestic silver producer will be required to sell a percentage of their output to the strategic reserve before selling to the commercial market. This will not create new supply. It will simply redirect existing supply away from the public and toward the government. It is rationing by another name. But the United States is not the only government waking up to the silver crisis. Let us turn our attention to China. The People's Bank of China does not publish detailed statistics on its silver reserves. Unlike gold, where they periodically announce accumulation, silver holdings are a state secret. But we can infer their activity from trade data. China's silver imports have increased by 340% over the past 3 years. They are buying from Mexico, Peru, Australia, and increasingly from the recycling stream within their own borders. The Shanghai premium exists because domestic demand is outstripping domestic supply, forcing buyers to pay premium prices to attract metal from international sources. Why is China stockpiling silver? Because they understand the supply chain vulnerabilities better than anyone. China manufactures 80% of the world's solar panels. They manufacture 60% of the world's electric vehicle batteries. They manufacture the majority of the world's consumer electronics. Every one of these industries requires silver. If China loses access to silver imports, their manufacturing base grinds to a halt. Their economic miracle ends. Their geopolitical ambitions collapse. They cannot allow this to happen. This is why the Shanghai premium is not going away. The Chinese government has effectively instructed domestic buyers to secure supply at any price. The price premium is not a market inefficiency. It is policy. It is the Chinese government using market mechanics to vacuum silver out of the West. And this brings us to the geopolitical implications of the vault drain. Every ounce that leaves the COMEX and arrives in Shanghai is a transfer of strategic capability from west to east. It is not just metal moving, it is power moving. The Europeans have begun to wake up as well. The European Commission published a revised Critical Raw Materials Act last quarter that includes silver on the list of strategic materials requiring supply chain resilience. They are mandating that member states develop contingency reserves. They are fast-tracking permitting for mining projects in Finland and Sweden. But there is a problem. European silver production is negligible. They produce less than 3% of global supply. Any European strategic reserve must be built through imports, which means competing with China for the same dwindling pool of available metal. This is the geopolitical scramble that the vault drain represents. The governments of the world have suddenly realized that they're playing musical chairs with the silver supply, and there are not enough chairs for everyone. The G7 meeting we discussed in our previous analysis was the first public acknowledgement of this scramble. The official communiqué spoke of supply chain security and critical mineral resilience, but read between the lines, they are panicking. And what about the nations that actually produce silver? Mexico is the world's largest producer, accounting for approximately 24% of global mine output. Peru is second at 15%, China is third at 13%. Mexico has begun to discuss resource nationalism. There are proposals in the Mexican Congress to require a percentage of domestic silver production to remain within the country. If these proposals become law, the export supply available to the rest of the world will shrink dramatically. Peru is facing political instability that threatens its mining sector. Community protests have shut down multiple major operations. Environmental regulations are tightening. New projects are being delayed. The supply side is not responding to higher prices. It typically takes 10 to 15 years to bring a new silver mine from discovery to production. Even if we found a major new deposit tomorrow, it would not produce an ounce until the mid-2030s. This is the fundamental problem that no amount of political maneuvering can solve. You cannot legislate silver into existence. You cannot print it. You cannot sanction it into appearing. The vault drain is the physical manifestation of a supply crisis that has been building for 2 decades. The governments are finally paying attention, but they are years too late. The metal has already begun its migration. The vaults are already bleeding. The strategic stockpiles were already sold. In Part 5, we will bring this analysis to its conclusion. We will discuss what this means for you, the individual investor. We will provide a framework for navigating the turbulence ahead. And we will explain why the vault drain is not something to fear. It is something to embrace. We have traveled a long distance in this analysis. We began with a spreadsheet, a daily warehouse report, showing 2.7 million ounces withdrawn from the COMEX. We traced that metal to its destinations. We examined the systemic implications for the banks. We explored the political awakening among world governments. Now we must bring this journey home to the question that matters most. What does this mean for you? If you're watching this report, you are not a passive observer. You are a participant. You have skin in the game, whether you own silver or not. Because the vault drain is not just a story about metal, it is a story about the transfer of wealth on a civilizational scale. Let us be absolutely clear about what is happening. The paper price of silver that appears on your trading screen is losing its connection to physical reality. The COMEX price and the real-world price are diverging. This divergence will continue to widen until the paper market either reforms or collapses. When the paper market fails, the paper price becomes meaningless. It will not matter whether the screen says 84 or 184 or 8. What will matter is whether you have metal in your possession. Because when the music stops, when the vaults show 0, when the exchange declares force majeure and settles contracts in cash, only physical holders will be made whole. The premiums you pay at your local coin shop are not a ripoff. They are the market telling you the truth. When a dealer charges you $98 for a silver eagle while the spot price says $84, that $14 premium is the real price discovery happening in real time. It is the gap between the fiction of paper and the reality of physical. Do not complain about premiums. Be grateful you can still buy at any price. The window is closing. Costco is limiting purchases. The U.S. Mint is backordered. Major dealers are showing 3-week delivery delays on common products. These are not temporary inconveniences. These are early warning signals of a market transitioning from abundance to scarcity. Now, let us address the psychology of this moment. If you already own silver, the vault drain is your vindication. Every ounce that leaves the COMEX is proof that your thesis was correct. You saw what the mainstream could not see. You understood that paper promises are not the same as physical possession. You positioned yourself accordingly. But vindication is not victory. Victory requires endurance. The establishment will not surrender quietly. They will use every tool at their disposal to shake you out of your position. They will raise margins. They will crash the paper price. They will plant stories in the media about bubbles and manias. They will try to make you feel foolish for holding a rock while they promote digital assets and paper derivatives. Do not let them succeed. The vault drain is your shield. Every time you feel doubt, look at the inventory numbers. Every time the price drops and the media celebrates, check how many ounces left the vault that day. The physical market tells the truth. The paper market tells stories. If you do not yet own silver, you face a decision that grows more urgent with each passing day. The 2.7 million ounces that left the vault today are not coming back. They have been absorbed into the industrial supply chain or locked away in private storage. Tomorrow, another 1,000,000 ounces will leave, and the day after that, and the day after that. Every day you wait is a day the available supply shrinks. Every day you hesitate is a day the premiums rise. At some point, and we do not know when that point is, the retail market will simply close. There will be no silver available at any price. The dealers will show out of stock on every product. The waiting lists will extend to months, then quarters, then indefinitely. This is not fear-mongering. This is what happens when a physical commodity enters a supply crisis. It happened with toilet paper in 2020. It happened with ammunition in 2021. It happened with baby formula in 2022. Now it is happening with silver. The only difference is that silver is money, which makes the consequences far more profound. Let us talk about strategy. If you're buying physical silver, prioritize products with the lowest premiums and highest liquidity. Generic rounds and bars from recognized refineries are typically more cost-effective than government-minted coins. But any silver is better than no silver. Do not let the perfect be the enemy of the good. If you are holding paper silver, whether through ETFs, futures, or unallocated accounts, understand the counterparty risk you are carrying. When the vaults go empty, these paper instruments will either be cash settled at a discount or frozen entirely. Consider converting to physical while you still can. If you are trading silver, understand that the volatility will be extreme. The paper market is now a battlefield between the dying shorts and the rising physical demand. There will be days when the price drops $5 for no apparent reason. There will be days when it rises $10 on thin volume. Do not let the swings distract you from the underlying trend. The trend is your friend, and the trend is unmistakable. The vaults are draining, the banks are trapped, the governments are awakening, the East is accumulating, the West is scrambling. Every data point confirms the thesis. Every day brings us closer to the resolution. This is not a sprint, it is a siege. The establishment has controlled the silver price for 50 years. They will not relinquish that control without a fight. But they are fighting against mathematics now. They are fighting against physics. They are fighting against 2.7 million ounces walking out the door every single day. The vault drain is not a problem for the silver bull. The vault drain is the silver bull. It is the manifestation of everything we have been saying. It is the proof that the paper emperor has no clothes. So let the mainstream media ignore the warehouse reports. Let the analysts dismiss the physical shortage. Let the banks pretend that everything is under control. We know the truth. The metal is leaving. The vaults are bleeding. And when the last ounce is withdrawn, when the spreadsheet shows 0, the price will be set by those who hold the silver. Make sure you are one of them. The vault drain continues. The thesis holds. Stack accordingly.